everyone, Raymond Mhor here, Real Mid-Word Kilts. How's everybody doing this evening? Tonight's show is about lactic acid fermentation process. And this is something that our ancestors have been doing for ages, literally. And it was a preservation process that has been used, and it preserves basically anything that you can. It's interesting. Lactic acid fermentation process has a lot of good things, a lot of positive benefits for you. And the problem with a lot of foods today, they are pasteurized, which means they bring them up to a super high heat to kill any and all bacteria. And so it's good to kill some bacteria, but it's not good to kill all the bacteria, because there is beneficial bacteria in a lot of foods. But when you cook it off and you pasteurize it and everything, you're killing everything. And so what you want to do is eat more of this, because it has a lot of positive probiotics. And this is something interesting. Georgia State University showed that lactic acid fermented food helps protect against influenza and even prevents against secondary infection. It's the naturally produced lactic acid fermented food offers the health benefits of strengthening your immune system, helping your body absorb minerals and vitamins, and giving your food a lot more higher antioxidant effect. So many foods that are using the lactic acid fermentation process also are very high in probiotics. And what does this mean? It means it boosts gut health, and so your gut stays really healthy. If you're prone to heartburn, acid reflux, ulcers, so forth, start eating a lot of lactic acid fermented foods, and you'll start seeing that go away. Studies have also shown that lactic acid strain helps provide protection against bacteria and infectious diseases such as streptococcus and pneumonia, as well as the cold and influenza. So fermented foods using lactic acid fermentation process, there's a lot of foods. So basically, yogurt, kimchi, cultured butter, sauerkraut, cheese, kefir, cured sausages, fish, fermented black tea, also known as kombucha. All of this is lactic acid fermentation process. And so the more that you are able to get into your body, the better health you have, the better gut health you have, and it also shows that it helps stop constipation as well. Our ancestors realized this a long time ago, and they understood the benefits of fermentation. I mean, heck, they didn't have refrigerators around then back then, and so this is one of the primary ways that they actually preserved food. And so one study observed, and this is very interesting. I found this study several years ago, and it found that countries that consumed high amounts of lactic acid fermented foods during the Spanish flu, and I'm talking about countries like Korea and such, Germany, some of the Slavic nations and so forth, a lot of those countries have very high lactic acid fermented fruits. So these countries during the 1918 Spanish flu showed that they didn't have as high of a mortality rate, where a lot of the rest of the world had a lot of deaths. And so in other words, countries that consumed more lactic acid fermented foods were healthier, and the fatality rate was less than countries that did not practice fermenting their food using a lactic acid fermentation process. And so basically, in simple words, less people caught the Spanish flu because they were consuming high amounts of lactic acid fermented foods. Now, what can you ferment at home? And it's amazing. Basically almost anything. And so let's see. And so many people, oh, what am I going to pickle? So the first thing people go to is cucumbers. And, there are so many other things. So here's a big list. Asparagus, beets, bell peppers, in fact, any peppers, jalapenos, sweet peppers, any of those. Blueberries, cauliflower, carrots, cherries, fennel, ginger, grapes, green beans, mushrooms, onions, parsnip, peaches, radishes, ramps, rhubarb, strawberries, squash, tomatoes, turnips, and watermelon. And you can also pickle meat. But that's going to actually be another show that I want to share with you and do with you, and actually pickle some meat. You can pickle sausage, you can actually just pickle meat in and of itself. So these are things that our ancestors did and helped preserve their foods, because again, they didn't have refrigeration, and so either they dried it or they pickled it or salted it, whatever. But they didn't really have very many means of preserving food. So what they caught, they had to eat really fast, and then, that was it. But tonight, what I want to do is actually show you my crock pot and show you some food and show you what we've done, or what I'm doing. And it's kind of an experiment. So here, let me move the camera over here. Let's see if this works and I don't drop the camera. So what I got here, let's move this in the camera view. First, what I got is my pickling crock. This is a 2-quart or half-gallon pickling crock. And these are great. You can get these on Amazon for about $30, $35. Not very expensive, so really easy. And I love this size. We have also like a 10-liter, so it's a rather large one. But I love this size because I'm able to experiment and try different herbs and different methods and different foods and everything. And, if it spoils or it doesn't work out or just tastes gross, what I do is I go out and dump it on the compost pile, and it goes back into the garden. So this is a great size. And if you're just learning how to ferment and using the lactic acid fermentation process, this is a good size to start off with and kind of get your fermentation legs underneath you. So, but very easy, very cool. Now, how does this work? Some of you are saying, well, how does this work? You stuff all your stuff in here, and you'll notice it's got a trough. And once you stuff all your stuff in there, you're going to put these weight stones in there to weigh the food down. And then you're going to then put water in here. And you see these little divots. There's these little divots right here. And you just place it in there like that. And so the water traps any air from coming in, but allows any gases and stuff to come out. So this protects your food, and it will then help, ferment it better and everything without exposing it to the air. So this is a great little crock pot, great little beginner one. I highly recommend. And what I'll do later is I'll put a link to it that I found in Amazon. So let's get started here. Now, what I've done is earlier, prior to doing the show, I cut up some Napa cabbage. So this is Napa cabbage right here. I cut up some cauliflower. I had some green onions in the refrigerator. I had some celery in the refrigerator. I had some carrots in the refrigerator, and I think I said cauliflower. But some of these things were stuff that was just, you always buy too many veggies, and a lot of times so many people just throw them away. This is a great thing to do if you're not going to be eating your veggies and you don't want them to go bad. So what I did is I chopped all this stuff up, added 2 tablespoons of salt, and then just mixed it up thoroughly. Now, here's the cool thing. I was at the store the other day, and I saw these great little spice packets by McCormick, and this little spice packet will spice 2 quarts, aka 2 liters, and for pickle spicing. And so this is a great little mix here, and so I'm experimenting with that tonight. And so I don't know if you can see here, I've got the spices in here, and I've really mixed it up thoroughly. So you can see the caraway seeds and some of the dill and some of the other stuff. So I'm running an experiment with this, but I cut this up and chopped it up probably about an hour ago. No, actually about 3 hours ago. And you want to do that, you want the salt to kind of start making things soft, because you can see things are kind of wilted and floppy and bendy and everything. The salt is already drawing the moisture out of these veggies and already kind of starting the whole pickling process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to start stuffing it into my crock pot. So, and again, you can do this with basically anything, and there's just so many recipes out there for pickled vegetables, pickled fruit. You know, you can pickle onion. I mean, pickled lemons. Pickled lemons is really, really good. And it's a great addition to any sort of cooking that you may be doing. So it's a great spice in and of itself to add a little bit of fermented lemon. So, cleaning that up here. Stuffing it down. And then I've got all these spices as well as this juice. I don't want this to go to waste. I want this all to end up in the pot. So I'm going to scrape in the edges here. And pouring this in. Then what I'm going to do is just kind of tamp it down. And they have tampers that you can buy, but they have other things that you can just tamp in here and help tamp your vegetables down and get them going. Now, what you want to do is clean out the trough. And I was trying some of these vegetables a little earlier, and they are tasty. Now here's another thing in regards to salt. I wanted to point out, you do not use regular table salt. What you want to use is kosher salt, because table salt has vinegar, has iodine, and you don't want to use iodine salt because what it does, it'll cause the food to taste rather nasty. The same thing goes with pink salt, because I know a lot of people out there like pink salt. Pink salt has a lot of minerals and things in it that can really cause your food not to really taste that great. So another final thing is bottled water. And if you are in an area that chlorinates the water, what you want to do is you want to use bottled water or spring water or something. You don't want to use just regular old everyday tap water because so many places chlorinate it, and the chlorine will actually kill the bacteria that will help ferment your food. So don't use common everyday tap water, use spring water or filtered water. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm going to be using filtered water. I got this. And then also, these are the little weights that we have. So you're going to slip that in and kind of push it down. You want this on top of the food, but push these down so it compacts the food really well. And then I'm just adding a little bit of water. You don't want to add too much because a lot of this stuff will also create its own moisture as part of the pickling process. So just a little bit. Let's see here. I'm going to add a little bit more. Because as the process takes place, more and more liquids are going to be given off on the vegetables, and you're going to start having a lot of liquid in here. And so that once the veggies and everything are covered with the liquid, you're good to go, and it'll start the fermentation process. Now, how this bacteria comes on these vegetables is that these veggies, all vegetables have the bacteria to create the lactic acid process. So even store-bought, farm-bought, yard raised, whatever, the bacteria is there. You can't wash it off. No matter what, it's always there. So, you can do this with any store-bought vegetable, homegrown vegetable. You go out to the You Pick 'em farm or something, same thing. The bacteria is there. You can do it. So that's what you do. So I've got maybe a little bit of water there. But again, you don't want to have too much, and I want to make sure I got some veggies that are sticking up here. I want to make sure all my veggies are at least down underneath my weight stones. Then what you're going to do is this little trough, you're going to put some water in it, a little bit more, and then add the lid. And what this does is it creates an airtight lock, preventing anything from getting into your pickle solution or your fermented solution, as well as allowing any gases, because as this thing pickles, gases are going to be coming off. And so the gases are able to escape as well as preventing any foreign bacteria, any critters or anything like that to get into the pickling thing. And then what you do, you just set this to the side, put it back here, and see how pretty that looks? Super easy. And again, these crocks do not cost that much. Now, other alternative methods is they sell these things that fit on top of mason jars, and so you can do lactic acid fermentation with mason jars. You can also do it with just an open crock or a big open jar. The negative is you are exposing your foods to the outside air, and so some yeasts or some bacteria may slip into that, and you may start growing mold or such. There's like this whitish sort of yeast that is in the air and will get on top of open crocks. Because a lot of people still like pickling with the open crocks. You just have to scrape off the scum that accumulates about every 3 or 4 days. And that's what happens because it's open to the air. Same sort of method, as long as you keep the foods and everything underneath the liquid, then they're doing good. And so this is why this crock has these weights. Other things that you can do is, again, find a big crock and everything. My mom, when we were young kids, we had a big open crock, and she used a plate and a rock. And so she would put the plate in over the food and then put a rock on top of the plate. And that's what kept all the pickles and veggies and such down underneath the liquid. So as long as it's underneath the liquid, it's good to go. And again, at times you're going to have to maybe scrape off scum or something if you're using an open crock. If you're using one of these, this is called a European style fermentation crock. The water trough prevents the yeast and everything from getting in there, and so you're less likely to grow any other mold or have any other yeasts or anything come in contact. Only thing it's going to come in contact with is the yeast and such that are on the veggies already. And then the salt is what activates this and starts the pickling process. Now, in 7 days, I'm able to go and try some of this. And see the key is, if it isn't as pickly as you may want, you let it sit for longer. It's going to get more and more sour, more and more pickled, and the longer you let it sit, the more sour and vinegar starts to be created. But when you're ready to then store it, what you can do is just place it in mason jars, and then put the mason jars into your refrigerator. Now, the cold will actually slow the fermentation process down quite a bit, and so it almost stops. Now, if you leave your pickles or your pickled products in there for 6 months, a year, yeah, it's going to be a little more vinegary, but overall, it's not going to change too much. Another thing that you can do is also can or pressure can, not really pressure can, but give it a hot, warm bath and do the canning method that way. That will also stop the actual fermentation process, because the heat will somewhat kill off the probiotics that are in that, and then, or the yeasts that are producing that, and then also air seal the pickles. So when you cook the food like that, you will lose some nutritional value because you're cooking off the positive probiotics that are in the fluid. Not all of them, but some of them, just because of the heat and everything. So I'm a big fan of just keeping it in the refrigerator and just letting it be like that. You don't want to keep it at room temperature, because what will happen at room temperature will continue to ferment, and maybe you've seen glass jars explode or something. That's what's happening, is it's building up so much pressure from the fermentation process that it'll blow your jar up. So don't just store this down in the basement without properly canning it. Best place to do it. I hope this has been very beneficial for you. I'm trying to focus a lot on food, just because the high rising prices out there, and one of the things that you can do to preserve foods or stock up foods or such, because food is an investment. And if you're able to buy something today, 10 days from now, the prices are going to go up. So again, food is an investment. And what's the worst thing you're going to do? Eat it. So always look at how you can start your own food preparations, how you can start stocking up your food, different things like that. And so this is what I'm trying to hopefully benefit from, and you guys are be able to gain more knowledge and be able to do other stuff like that. So that is everything. This was a very in-depth show. Lots of information. If you have any questions, please contact me. Best way to do that is on Facebook via private message. I live on Facebook, so do that. And then also, I have started a YouTube channel, and I don't have a name for it yet. It's basically the Kilted Prepper, but I'm going to be putting up a lot of these videos on the YouTube channel, and so please go there, subscribe, give some thumbs up and everything to the videos as I produce them. It helps that channel grow, because I want to reach more and more people out there, and one, share the Kilted Freedom, and then two, share some really cool prepper ideas. So that's my goal, to do that, is just expand and teach the world more about the wonderful life of being kilted and preparedness. So that's everything, folks. I'm Raymond Mhor. We'll see you. Goodbye, God bless, and kilt on.